Hey, before we begin the show today, please consider donating to the Blue Oasis Podcast. There will be a Square donation link in the show notes, and if you're on YouTube, the link will be in the description. None of the money will go into my pocket. This will be specifically for the hosting fees and equipment. So if you like what you hear today, please consider donating. And with that being said, let's get to the show. Welcome to the Blue Oasis Podcast. I am your host, Adam Rothstein. All right, let's get to the show. Good morning, hobbyists. I hope you are prepared for a special episode today. So this episode, we are going to be talking about Legos. This is the Lego episode, and we're going to get into the history of it. We are going to talk about its role as a hobby and how you can make a little extra money with Legos. So, where do we begin? Well, we begin in the 1930s. A man by the name of Ole Christensen was a carpenter, and he owned his own firm. There was a recession in Denmark, and he had to lay off his workers. And he had many struggles, and he did have to provide for his family as well. His wife died in the middle of all of it, as things seemed like they couldn't get any worse. So he also had 4 boys as well. Now, he needed to make an income. He did not have his workers, and the firm was not doing anything with sales, and he needed something. So he used some old wood in his shop and got to work making toys. And at first they weren't that successful. Some local businesses in the area where he was living didn't have much money at the time, and they traded for food and stuff, and they were able to get by with that. Eventually, his son Godfried stays after school, and he helps his father out, and they're able to get some business rolling. Soon enough, the wooden toys begin to take off, and eventually they become successful. The 1940s roll around, and things still seem to be going smoothly. During the 1942 winter, the winter of 1942, there was a fire set to their workshop, and they lost everything in the fire. After this, they were able to rebuild from it. A few years later, Ole goes to a convention and discovers a plastic molding machine. He's given a plastic brick, and he then has all these different ideas, and he calls up his son to see if he would agree to buying the plastic molding machine. Godfried eventually agrees to it, and they get to work right away. And they start building all these plastic toys in addition to the wooden ones they were already selling. After the launch of the Gray Ferguson tractor, things become successful at first. But during the summer and spring months, sales begin to decline. Godfried eventually goes out and tries to sell the plastic toys himself. For what it was worth, Godfried actually did become successful at selling the plastic toys. About a few years later, he finds a businessman from England as he's on a business trip, and they talk about the toy industry and how there's no system in place for any toy. And this gets Godfrey wondering about what he can do with the plastic bricks. He eventually talks it over with his father, saying that, why are we making all these toys? These are ready-made solutions. We need something else where kids can explore their imaginations and create whatever they want. This idea then started what we know as Lego today. The first Lego sets were based on towns and cities. A child could build a house or a car with Legos and use a placemat that was given to them to learn about traffic safety. When kids went to assemble the bricks and create sculptures and statues, whenever they lift up the bricks or the statue or whatever they were building, the bricks kept toppling over. Godfrey knew that this had to be fixed if he ever wanted the Lego brand to be successful for generations. He noticed that with tubes inside the bricks, that they stuck together and sculptures and statues and towers didn't topple over so easily. During this time, Godfrey's father, Ole, died, and Ole never knew what the Lego brick would become. While it seemed that things couldn't get any worse for Godfrey, it did. There was another fire at the workshop, and even though times were tough, he still knew that he had to get the best out of every situation. With most of the wood gone from the fire, Godfrey decided to focus solely on the plastic Lego bricks. Eventually, sales begin to increase, and Godfrey is able to work on some new products and bring them to market. While the new Lego sets were being developed, the people who worked at Lego, as well as business consultants that were visitors there, always wanted to see the break room and the new products that were coming out. This eventually gives Godfrey an idea to build Legoland. When he first pitched the idea, people were shocked and didn't believe that it would be a success. Godfrey originally estimated about 200,000 people would arrive to the theme park, but it was actually about 3 times more than that. The 70s and 80s roll on, and they continue to expand into different sets. But once the 90s rolled around, things began to change. Eventually, they started to base their products off of movies such as Star Wars, and then in the 2000s, Harry Potter, Batman, and other things. Also during this time, Lego slowly began to get into video games. The first video game based on Legos was known as Lego Fun to Build. Developed and released by Sega in 1995, this title was exclusive only in Japan. In 1997, the first Lego game that went worldwide was Lego Island. This game was developed and produced by Mindscape. Once the 2000s rolled around, did LEGO expand even further with its video games. LEGO Star Wars was produced in 2005, and this game gave way to more LEGO video games. I remember playing this game on my GameCube, and this changed my world. While the characters couldn't talk, it still shadowed what happened in the movies of the Star Wars prequels. I really did enjoy playing it. It was simple to play and easy to learn. Now, even before I got this game, I also had a LEGO PC game called LEGO Creator. This game was made in 1998, but I had it in 2001 and 2002. This game helped me build replicas of what I wanted. And even with the Lego bricks that I had at the time, the limited amount that I had, this also gave me even more unlimited possibilities of what I wanted to build when I got more Legos as a child. Eventually, I decided to quit playing the PC game and just go for the real thing. When I got more Legos, I began to build more towers and bridges and all that stuff. Soon enough, I focused on actual sets and actually following along with the instructions. I had many different sets as a child, from Star Wars to soccer, and even those LEGO Creator bins you used to buy and design whatever you wanted. For a time up until I was about 14 was I actually interested in Legos. During high school and after middle school, I put the Legos away and just never touched them. During the time before I was going to college, I donated the Legos to Goodwill. This morning, I actually was on eBay looking at old Lego products, and I discovered that my old Y-Wing set was going for $255 on eBay, and I was like thinking, man, I could have used the extra $100 or so there. Wish I knew that before I sold that. So I had a bunch of Lego Star Wars products growing up, and now we're going to move on to something else. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the money. So if you do have these old Lego sets from the 90s and early 2000s, go on eBay and see what they're selling for. And because you might find that they are worth $300 and they actually increased in value. Because there are definitely a lot of toy collectors that would love to buy those products, or Star Wars fans or Batman fans or whatever, because people are into that stuff. And another thing that I discovered was that the Lego Star Wars video game, the first one, was actually worth less than what I had purchased it for. I think I was about 15 or so when I exchanged it for maybe about $10 or so, and that's what it's worth now. So I actually made out a little bit on that from where it was. So how else can you make money from Legos? Well, I've talked about it before, YouTube channels. Now, you see many of these reviews that come out of the new Lego products and all these unboxing channels, and that is definitely a great way to build your base. If you're a filmmaker, actually. You can actually create a little story of it